Thank you, ma'am, and thank you, sir. Good morning, all of you. My name is Namrata Kumari. I'm from Department of Linguistics, University of Delhi, and my today's presentation topic for me is inner and outer aspect in Bhojpuri. Before delving into the topic, I'd like to I'd like to give a brief introduction of the language. Yeah, thank you. Uh, Bhojpuri is actually westernmost speech of the Eastern or Magadhan group of Indo-Aryan languages, spoken mainly in Western Bihar, Eastern Uttar Pradesh, and parts of Jharkhand. And according to Census of India, it is also spoken in many other states, for example, in Delhi, Maharashtra, Bengal, Chhattisgarh, etc. Ma'am, can you please change the slide? Yeah, thank you. Coming back to aspect, aspect is a part of grammar that is related to the temporality of an event and speech time. For example, John read a book, and it is one of the categories of grammar amongst tense, mood, voice, etc. And but also differs from all of them. For example, it differs from tense in the sense that tense is a deictic category and aspect is a temporal category. To say it in a line, in a timeline, tense is a point in time, but an aspect is a duration in the timeline. As given in the slide, see both in the same sentences. Coming back to types of aspects, so there are basically two types of aspects, grammatical and situation aspect, or also called outer and inner aspect respectively. Outer aspect, as is shown here, that it locates events relative to the point of view, that is reference to time, or inner aspect is related to the internal temporal constituency of the sentence. There are two types of outer aspect, that is perfective and imperfective. First is perfective, and perfective looks at the situation from outside without necessarily distinguishing any of the internal structure of the situation. For example, Maya has worked here. And imperfective, on the other hand, looks at the situation from inside. And according to Kumari, progressiveness differs from imperfectivity as a whole. And Kumari broadly classifies imperfective aspect in two parts, that is habitual and continuous or progressive. Habitual is actually, it does not depict an event as a single entity. For example, John used to work here. Or continuous is, as the name itself is suggesting, it's an ongoing action or an action in a given time. For example, John was talking on the phone. Coming to the types of inner aspect, first is telic and second is atelic. So talking about telic aspect, McDonald says that a predicate to be telic, it must have both an IE and FE. Those are initial event and final event features respectively, which shows a beginning and end. And it is further divided into two parts, that is achievement and accomplishment. It can be understood in two aspectual markers, that is achievement and accomplishment. Achievements have change of state but do not have duration, but accomplishments have both duration and telicity, or they are said to be inherently temporally bounded. For example, see example number 5, I walked for 4 kilometers today. Yeah, coming to atelic or minus telic situations, minus telic aspects. Minus telic is one that does not have a definite end. And on the other hand, telic has a definite end, as McDonald has also pointed out. These predicates, atelic predicates, are classified following into two types, that are state and activity. States actually do not show a beginning or an end. And they are said to be described by stative verbs like know, understand, believe, etc. For instance, Seema knows the answer, but we cannot say Seema is knowing the answer. It does not have a process as provided in the table below. An activity, moving to activity, it is, as the name itself suggests, related to do some kind of activity, and activities are said to have duration. Coming next to the works that has been uh, works on aspect that I have cited in the presentation, that is of McDonald, and second is of Travis. McDonald, according to McDonald, aspect is a relation between NP and ASP, presenting that the statives lack ASP, whereas eventives do project ASP. And the same in the same line, the trees are given below. Yeah. Coming to what I observed in McDonald's work is that I'll just summarize this part of the slide. Some part of the slide, not the whole. So, what I observed from McDonald's work is that he talks about object to event mapping, time span adverbial and the durative phrase, telicity and in achievement and accomplishment, that is as is contained within the little VP, and determines the telicity of the predicate. Talking about Travis, she says that aspect is sandwiched between two lexical domains, and it is between the Larsonian VP shell structure. She presents that there is a functional category which is laid between the little VP, that is embedded syntactically, that is embedded in syntactic representation of the lexical entry, and distinguishes between outer and inner aspect. As she says that aspect 1, that is outer aspect, shows whether the action has started or not, and is not affected by the nature of internal argument, and aspect 2 shows that whether the action has completed or not, and is affected by the nature of the internal argument. So, coming to the place of aspect in traditional Bhojpuri grammar, I've looked into two works of Bhojpuri grammar, that is by UN Tiwari, The Origin and Development of Bhojpuri, and by Shaligram Shukla, Bhojpuri grammar. What I perceived from the readings of two is that aspect is not overtly mentioned as a separate category of grammar, but is considered a part of verb. And uh, Tiwari in his work shows that the ale, as I am going to present here as a perfective marker, is he does not show it as a perfective aspect, but says that it is a perfect tense attached with the verb. And he says that progressive tense particle is hai or bani, but does not show that it is a progressive aspect. He does not talk about aspect as a whole. In line to that, Travis opines that aspect is an area that syntacticians have until recently tended to shy away from. This is largely because, as a topic, aspect lends itself more to the domains of semantics and morphology than to syntax. I've presented the empirical data here from Bhojpuri, and first is perfective aspect used in simple verbs and compound verbs. So, in simple verbs, uh, the perfective aspect is realized as a and e. Uh, that is, for example, see, example number 12, Ram Kitab Padhalan, Ram read the book. The a part attached to the verb can be considered perfective aspect, and in compound verbs it is realized as ale and ile. See example, Ram roti khaile bade, Ram has eaten bread. We can say that the ile part attached to the kha verb is the perfective aspect attached to the main verb. So, coming to the imperfective aspect here, I have taken into consideration are habitual and progressive aspects. So, habitual aspect is realized in Bhojpuri as A, as in 17, as in 18. Nisa chai pieli, that is Nisha drinks tea. Or we can say that Nisha drinks tea habitually or frequently. Or it can also be unmarked, as in 17, Nisa roj unka ghare jali. Uh, Now, for the evidence of progressive aspect, we can say that it is realized in Bhojpuri as at and al. For example, Laikava Sutal Badesan, that is the al part. We can consider the al part attached to the verb as progressive aspect here. Uh, and it is giving the sense of progressiveness, the as in ing in English. Or for at evidence, we can say the example number 20, that is uha ke kitab padhat bani. He is reading a book, or say books. Here I've presented a brief summary of what I've looked into, what the work I've looked into, that is perfective aspect is realized as in simple verbs padha learn. In compound verbs it is realized as ale and ile, a ale and ile, that is padhale or gail, gaile. And in imperfective, these are realized as a, or it can be unmarked, and in progressive it can be realized as at and an, as in padhat or sutal. So, what my analysis shows of inner and outer aspect of Bhojpuri is that outer aspect in Bhojpuri, what I believe is overtly marked with morphemes assigned above, but at the same time, it is not. I mean, the inner aspect may not be overtly marked sometimes, but sits there in the tree between the two VPs as in provided by Travis. Uh, but there is also a kind of criticism to McDonald and Travis that they do not present the AGRSP in the structure, and actually we do not need AGRSP in the tree structure if we are using the agree model. And Bhojpuri, as we know, is a kind of language that has a lot of agreements. So to accommodate agreement marker, I have used the agree model in the tree next in the slide. Here in the tree, I've shown the agreement of little vp with np, and with t to v, that is providing the past tense marker. Then we have agreement of t to spec vp. I mean, t moves up to spec vp to provide the epp, and then again t2 spec vp to provide the phi feature. I have actually presented the idea that the VP shell structure, one functional and the other lexical VP. The tree provides structure of an activity predicate, eat, with the verb eat, which gains telecity from moving up to ISP, and it further moves up to the little v, that is the causal head, and crosses out the UV, then moves up to OSP to join with the perfective aspectual marker E, becoming Kha E. And it's still, but it still requires a crucial element, that is agreement marker of the subject, that is first person agreement marker here, which gets its agree, which it gets from the T head after moving up further to the T head. Thank you. This is what I have.
I think one of the things that we should note before we ask a question is that Namrata is doing her MA. She is in the third
Yes,
semester
exactly.
and has just taken an introductory syntax course and a advanced syntax course with me, and she has already started looking at her own language, which is not a easy job if you are staying in a metropolitan
Correct.
city, and in this generation to go back and look at your own language and
Correct.
try to analyze it. So
Correct.
all the encouragement to her. And as you said, Pankaj, very rightly, that a lot of problem with connectivity, and still she managed to pull this through.
Correct.
Of course, because of the kind of conferences, we cannot go into the, she couldn't go into the detail of the analysis. But I think this would be a kind of a model for many people, especially this generation, when you're losing touch with your native language. Linguistics gives you that empowerment to in fact look at your own language and do something meaningful. All these are meaningful activities. Even if you do typological work, you do in phonology, morphology, descriptive linguistics, and in syntax, these are very meaningful contribution to the language. So I will encourage her, and of course I have talked at various points with her, but this is her own work, and it's commendable. The
Yes.
only comment that I can give is that maybe in future you could look at complex sentences. You have taken a simple sentence like I ate or something, I ate the food or something like
Yes,
that.
sir.
Yeah, so the complex sentences, when you have a embedded clause, it would be interesting to look at it. Bhojpuri is a very popular language. Everybody knows about Bhojpuri, but in Bhojpuri, work has been in syntax. Work has been minimal. Like you could see from Namrata's references that she could refer to this work in the 60s and 80s. That too, we haven't got the dissertation that she was looking for. I've ordered it from Massachusetts University, and we should get it. But most of the things are not done. So there's a huge amount of work that needs to be done. So complex sentences might give interesting agreement patterns, and also comparison of Bhojpuri with Maghi and Maithili, Angika, etc. would throw up this possibility that object agreement is actually probably not there in Bhojpuri, but you need to figure that out and incorporate that in your syntactic idea, that you can get from your agreement that you showed. You can get the subject agreement, but
Yes, sir.
what stops the object agreement? That would be the next stage in your research. What stops? Because Mathili, Maghi, all these have object agreement at the same time, or Bajika. Sudhanshu is here. Bajika also has that agreement of object and subject at the same time. Multiple agreement, we call it. So you have to then, if this is the case that Bhojpuri does not have object agreement, in spite of there was one presentation yesterday, I think, that wrongly considered Bhojpuri having object agreement. You will have to show what stops it. How do you analyze that? So that, I think.
Sure, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.